Now we are live on the Facebook and we are ready to go. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Leadership Night podcast. I am Ahmed. I will be your host tonight, and I'm so delighted to welcome our guest, Scott Miller. Scott is 23 years associate of Franklin Covey and serves as the executive vice president of Thought Leadership. Also, Scott hosts multiple podcasts, including Franklin Covey on leadership and Great Life, Great Career podcast as well. Additionally, Scott is the author of the multi-week Amazon #1 new release, Management Myths to Leadership Success, 30 Challenges to Become a Leader That You Would Follow. Scott, welcome to the Leadership Night. I'm so delighted and so excited that you have given us time today.
Ahmed, it's my honor. Thank you for the invitation and for the platform. Looking forward to our time together.
Great to have you, Scott. I need to share with you that I read your two books cover to cover. The first one, Everyone Deserves a Great Manager, the 6 Critical Practices for Leading a Team, which was with Todd Davis and Victoria Ross as well.
Right.
And the second one, also Management Myths to Leadership Success, 30 Challenges to Become the Leader That You Would Follow. Looking forward to dig into the news about Management Myths to Leadership Success in our next session. But before we do that, we will try to go and see what are your insights for the first book, which is Everyone Deserves a Great Leader, or the 6 Critical Practices to lead the team. Also, I want to share with you that we have received 50 questions asked before we even start this podcast today. Hopefully, we will be able to answer them all during our session today. And of course, if anyone watching us now live on Facebook or via Zoom, you are welcome to ask any question, and we will try to answer it. So, Scott, let's have a deep dive into your first book, Everyone Deserves a Great Manager, the 6 Critical Practices to Lead a Team. First things first, what makes you call these practices critical, and why they are critical for each leader?
Well, I don't think first that everyone should be a leader of people. That's kind of a premise, is that I don't think everyone should be an anesthesiologist or a commercial airline pilot. Not everyone should be a leader of people. And I think too often in organizations, Ahmed, you have people that get promoted because they were the best salesperson, right? Or the most efficient project manager. And in organizations, we tend to lure people into leadership as opposed to lead them in. So the first premise is not everyone should be a leader of people, and that's okay. But if you are going to be a leader of people, after 40 years in the leadership business, Franklin Covey has learned a few things around what it takes to lead a team. And we boiled down 40 years worth of research and insights and client implementations, client successes, client failures. And we culled it down into these 6 critical practices. Are there more than 6? Probably. But there are 6 that we think that if any leader can begin to master or just even improve upon, they will transform not just their own leadership skills, but the culture and productivity of the team. So 60 practices seemed a bit daunting, but 6 seemed like a good number, and 6 of the most important ones. So that's why we picked these 6.
Yeah. So who do you design this book for? Who is going to most benefit?
You know, Ahmed, it's always the first question you're asked when you pitch a book to a publisher, right? Who is the target market? And every author always says, well, everyone can benefit from this book, right? No. Not everyone is going to read their book. There's really 2 markets. The first is anybody in a leadership position, primarily sort of first level, first time, or a frontline leader. Because what's happened in most organizations around the world is, due to the digitization of information, you don't need 8-10 layers of leadership anymore, right? It's very clear that most people in organizations are now reporting to a frontline or first level leader. And there's massive pressure put on these people. And typically they're not very well trained. You know that The Harvard Business Review did a study about a year and a half ago that said the average age that someone receives their first promotion into their first management role is age 30. But yet the average age they receive their first formal leadership development training, age 42. So there's 12 years that well-intended people like you and me, who were the top salesperson, and now we're the top sales leader, and we haven't been trained properly. We're not bad people. We're just people that are trying to figure it out, and we're wreaking havoc across our companies and our cultures. So primarily the audience is first level, first time, or frontline leaders. But the question I'm asked the most in every speech and every webinar is, can you teach these principles at the executive level? Are these practices relevant at the executive level? Well, of course, the answer is yes. I mean, look around to your executive suite. Do you wish your executives had more time for one-on-one meetings? Meetings. The answer is yes, right? Do you wish they were better at delegating? They were better at goal setting? Do you wish they led through change? Do you wish your CEO was better at giving feedback to her or his team? Of course the answer is yes. So there's kind of two markets, right? Really, it's every leader and every organization wants to improve their leadership skills.
Yeah, adding on that, usually people take their first leadership role because they are good, as you just mentioned. Yeah, that happened for me. I was a good trainer, and then I achieved my KPIs, I accomplished all the results that they asked me to do it. And as far as I remember, I started to attend leadership training 11 or 12 months after my promotion, and it was self-development. It was not offered by my organization. So you're totally right.
Very common.
Yeah. So also, Scott, what I personally see amazing about this book is the practical guide in each practice, which could be considered as a great tool to help leaders how to manifest it through their role. Unlike the other books, which all are good, by the way, yet those books give you only tips about what makes a great leader without telling you how to do so. In your opinion, what makes this book different from the other leadership books in the market?
Well, I think you just said it, is that we did not want to write an academic leadership book. We didn't want to write a philosophical tome or an ethereal book. We wanted to write a very practical book that you could read it and behave differently this afternoon. That you could run meetings differently. You could have feedback sessions. You could think differently immediately. So every practice has a shift in paradigm. The old paradigm is this. The new paradigm is this. And here are tools, activities, worksheets, scripts. Don't say this. Consider saying that. And I think some people might think it was elementary. I think it's enormously practical. I've been a formal leader for 20 years. Not sure I should have been, but I have been a leader of people for 20 years. And when I finished writing the book with Todd and Victoria, the day before it went to the publisher, we made some final edits. We all sat out right here on my porch. We closed the book, and Ahmed, we said at the same time, if only we'd had this book in our own careers 20 years ago, right? I wouldn't be the chief marketing officer. I'd be the chief executive officer, right? And there's a big income difference as well. So I think the tools and the applications, the worksheets, the structures are very helpful for anybody, even a seasoned leader. We can always improve.
Yeah, definitely. And the best thing that I see in Franklin Covey as well, you are very good in putting this in public and people to the people to benefit from it. So I can go to the Franklin Covey website and download it. And I was so surprised the first time I saw that. And I was asking myself, why do these people doing this? Because this is, let me call it, this is your baby. Why you put it to the public, to the people?
Well, Franklin Covey is a global company, right? We're based here where I am today in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the States. We have offices around the world. We're a training and leadership development company. We write books because our mission is to inspire greatness in people and organizations everywhere. And although we are a for-profit training company, there's a one-day work session around this book, right? We want organizations to certify and train in it. We also think it's part of our duty as leadership experts and researchers and practitioners to put the content out. So in case someone works for a small company and they can't afford to bring in a consultant, right? Or you're an entrepreneur and you're just starting out. So we want to be abundant with the knowledge that we have, the resources that we've spent to invest in developing leaders. And if someone reads the book and visits the website and they want to bring us in to help further the culture and teach the lessons, we'd be delighted to. At the same time, we're honored to be able to publish books that people read and just improve their own leadership skills.
Very good, very good. So let's jump directly to the 6 critical practices and go through it one by one quickly. The first practice is develop a leader mindset. Why is this practice critical for leaders?
Sure. Well, so anyone that knows of the Franklin Covey Company, you know that Dr. Stephen R. Covey was our co-founder. He was the author of many books, including the seminal book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That book is now in its 30th year and it sold 40 million copies. One of the big ideas that Dr. Covey popularized in that book was the idea of a paradigm. He didn't invent it. He just sort of popularized it, your mindset, your belief system. And all of us have deeply entrenched belief systems about how we see our industry, our company, our role, how we see people of different genders or sexual orientation or religions. We all have deeply entrenched mindsets. We also have those same mindsets on the role of a leader. So the first practice is develop a leader's mindset. And the old mindset is that my job is to get all the work done myself. Because as an individual producer, that's often the case. But when you're promoted to be a leader, the new mindset is my job is now to get work done with and through other people. Think about that for a moment. When a leader's mindset is to get work done with and through other people, everything changes. How patient you are, how you coach, how you mentor, how you slow down, how you organize your time to ensure that you're developing skills, capability, capacity in other people so that you don't become the smartest person in the room. You don't become a martyr or a victim because you don't have time to teach other people. Oh, you must teach other people. Otherwise, you'll continue to be doing all the work yourself a year from now and no progress will be made. So this first practice is really fundamental to the book. The other 5 practices don't matter if the first practice isn't in place, that your job is to get work done with and through other people. That requires you to develop relationships that are trusting, to become a better listener. It really requires you to think and rethink everything you think about your culture, your industry, your contribution, your own skill set, and what really is your key contribution inside the organization.
Yeah, and also I can tell that without this practice, you will not be able to go through the other 5 practices, because in each practice you try to tell us that this is the common mindset and this is the effective mindset that you need to shift to. So the second role is practice is hold regular one-on-one. And let me share with you that while I was reading this book, many people started to come to my mind, reminding me how ineffectively they conducted one-on-one meeting with either with me or with my colleague. So I know why this practice is important. Yet, what hooked me when you titled this practice to be regular one-on-one meeting. Why it should be regular? Leaders meet with their employees in many meetings, check-in meetings, weekly review, monthly review, many meetings. So why should they make it regular?
No one needs another meeting on their schedule, especially if you're a senior level or a mid-level leader. But let me tell you a couple of thoughts. Leaders do not create engagement. We hear this sometimes from our well-intended human resource partners. Leaders do not create engagement. Leaders create the conditions where other people choose their own level of engagement, high or low. So if you view your role as a leader to create the conditions, hopefully of high engagement, then you have to be engaged with your own people. You have to understand What's it like to work here? What's it like to be in a meeting with me? What's it like to report to me? You have to understand, what are their passions? What are their fears? What are their career goals? And this is a chance in the one-on-one meeting to regularly check in, not check on. And that's the big paradigm shift. I think too often leaders, understandably, view staff meetings or one-on-one meetings to check in on people's progress. The purpose of this regular one-on-one is to consistently check in with people, where they do 80% of the talking and you do 20%. It's their meeting, not your meeting. They schedule it, they lead it, they run it, and your job is to listen and to clear the path and to really understand what are the issues that they're facing and how can you be a better leader for them. The regular aspect is because if they're episodic, if they happen irregularly, as a leader, you're more tempted to cancel these meetings and instead place your priorities on what your boss needs from you, or fight some fire or some urgency. There will always be a reason to cancel them. Now, Ahmed, regular might mean different things to different cultures, right? We advocate in the book once a week, 30 minutes, 2 or 3 agenda items, their agenda items, not yours. That may not be realistic. I have 10 direct reports. I cannot have 10 one-on-ones every week. I do them about every other week, but I do my best never to cancel them, because that's tempting, especially when you're a leader or your boss is, weighing on you for urgency projects and results. Be very mindful about the intervals with which you schedule them. Regular might mean 1 month. Regular might mean twice a month. You decide the frequency, but make sure that they are scheduled with consistent regularity so that your people can expect to be prepared for them, lead them, and that you are prepared to listen and really understand what's going on in their job and in their life.
Yep. I also can say that. Also, you have this as challenge number 20 in the management method. Yeah. So, do you have steps or guidelines for the leaders that they need to follow to conduct a great or a good one-on-one meeting?
Yeah. Let me give you 6 or 7 points, and I mentioned some of them. Here's the first. This is not your meeting. This is their meeting. And this is fundamentally different. As the leader, you're used to running all the meetings. But you got to change your mindset. This is their one-on-one with you, not your one-on-one with them. This is a chance for them to ask you questions, a chance for them to talk about what their fears are and their passions are. This is a chance for them to give you some feedback on some struggles that they're having. It's a chance for you to listen. So their meeting, not your meeting. They schedule it and they create the agenda. Again, some junior associates may not be comfortable leading a meeting with their boss, which is why in the book and in the one-day program, we have a whole schedule of questions that they can use to ask. We actually offer a worksheet on how to structure the one-on-one. So we give them some guidance on how to have a meeting with their boss. I think the next is the most important piece, is that your job is to listen, not to speak. Your job is to show empathy. Now, if they ask you to solve a problem, you can choose if you choose to solve it. But it's a chance for you to really understand, to check in on, not check in with, not check on. Are they thinking of leaving? Are they thinking of quitting? Are they thinking of it's time for a promotion? Do they need some feedback on something that they're not doing right? Have they asked for it? But I think generally, if you do 20% of the talking, if you let them schedule the meeting, if you just show up and answer questions and create a comfortable dialogue where they feel comfortable asking anything, whether it be about how is the pandemic impacting our profit? Is my job at risk? I need some coaching on how to deal with Mohammed down the hall. I'm worried about this new acquisition, and am I going to be asked to lead more people? Whatever it is, right? It's a chance for them to understand from you the mission, the vision, the values, the strategy, maybe get some feedback, but so that their level of engagement can become higher because they have built better trust with their leader and their one-on-one.
Yeah, correct. I totally agree, and it reminds me with some leaders that I saw myself while I was conducting some observation, or even some leaders that I worked with. They started to have the one-on-one meeting, and then the phone rings, and then one email comes. They need to reply back to this email, and so many things that was distracting our meeting. And it tells me, it gives me, it conveys me the message that they are not caring about this meeting. They're just doing it for the record, for documentation, and that's it. So,
I think it's a very important point you bring up. As the leader, before you enter your team members' one-on-one meeting with you, remind yourself, this is not my meeting. This is their meeting. This is a chance for me to listen, understand, and maybe solve some of their issues, maybe not. I'm going to close my laptop. I'm not even going to bring my phone into the meeting. If my watch gives me messages, I'm going to take it off. I'm going to bring in some paper and some pen and take some notes. And remember, my job is not to lead this. My job is not to solve all the problems. My job is to listen with the intent to understand and not the intent to respond. It may take you stepping outside your office and regrounding yourself. What is the purpose of this meeting? The purpose of this meeting is to allow them to be more engaged when they come out, because they feel like they have a chance to build a relationship with me on their agenda, on their timeline, not on mine.
Yes. So let's go to the practice number 3, set up your team to get results. And it's almost about sharing the why behind the what. So it's good to share the why behind the what, but why it's critical.
Yeah, I think we hear a lot about this, explaining the why, right? Is because we all know that the further up we move in the organization, the higher up, we tend to have more information, more context, more texture for the reasons why things are happening. And the further you are down in the organization, the less information you have, the less context. So if you want people to choose a high level of engagement, they have to understand, why am I on this project? Why are we launching this product? Why are we changing this system? Why am I completing this report? Gone are the days where the new generation just does things because they're told. That's not the future of the workforce. People want to understand. Now, that doesn't mean they have to have the right to disagree. At the end of the day, you work for the company. This is the job. But any leader that wants to create high level conditions of engagement will take the time to say, here is why we have hired this consultant to help on this project. Here's why we have acquired this company. Here's why we're shutting down this division to instead focus on this division. So the more patient you can be, the more you can understand, because you know it, because you understand it, does not mean that they know it or they understand it. Take the time, slow down, share with people the why behind the what. Because as Dr. Covey said, no involvement, no commitment. And as a leader, we're all going fast, right? We're trying to be efficient. We have a ton of things to do. And you may not think you have the time to explain everything to everyone. And you don't, and nor should you. You don't have to explain everything to everyone. But if there is an initiative or a project or some strategy where you're concerned that everybody's not engaged, or their engagement is crucial to the success of the launch of this initiative, then as a leader, you must take the time to slow down and explain the why behind the what. Take some questions, right? Because absent facts, people make stuff up. If you don't declare your intent, if you don't declare the why behind the strategy, then people will make up stuff. And some of it will be true, and some of it will be not true. And then it will become gossip, and then it will become your culture. And people will be, creating realities that aren't true. So the more you clarify up front, on the front end, and take questions. Does anybody have any concerns? Is anybody wondering still why we're choosing to do this? Does anybody want to challenge that and have me explain to you more around That may sound frustrating, but a little bit of explanation on the front end will save you so much pain on the back end. And it was one of our co-founders, Ahmed, that said something that I think is profound. It was Blaine Lee. And he said, nearly all, if not all, conflict in life comes from mismatched or unfulfilled expectations.
Yeah.
So if you want to minimize conflict and confusion, if you want to create clarity and a flywheel around your strategy, take the time to over-explain the why behind the what.
Yeah, because
this is common knowledge, right? This isn't an epiphany. This is common knowledge, but common knowledge isn't always common practice. Ask my wife, right? I don't practice all these things in my marriage. Ask my boss. My boss wishes I did all this all the time. I'm not human, right? But it helps to remind us of things we already knew intuitively, and to say, okay, you know what? That's right. I should take time in today's meeting to re-explain this strategy and field any questions they have.
Yeah, and also what has stopped me in this part is delegating. And this could be tricky. All leadership books, all trainings that I attended, all speeches that I saw, they speak and tell you that you need to follow a simple formula, which is a skill and will matrix, and then you'll be able to know what to delegate. As if that we are leaders by default. We know how to delegate. We know all the resources, all the communication plans, everything. So they give us the task, and this is the task delegated. I need you to accomplish this task within this due date, and that's it. So let me ask you a couple of questions here. What to delegate and how to delegate?
Well, I think it's different for every scenario, right? There's not one formula. Here's an idea that we teach, is that when people hear the word delegation, it means different things to different people and different levels of leader. There are some leaders, Ahmed, that when they hear delegation, they think that means, push their own job out to their team. And they over-delegate, and they then have the team think, well, if we're doing your job, what is it you're doing, right? And they think they're real sly. There are some leaders that choose to push all their work out and then file their nails. Not really, but you get the point. And the opposite level of delegation is you have the leader who has the mindset that if you want it done right, just do it yourself. And then therefore, they don't delegate anything out because they don't trust their people. They don't have a leader's mindset, which is to get work done with and through other people. And the problem is they now do all the work themselves, and then they resent, and they become jealous, and they victimize, and they punish their team members because their team members are out living their lives. They're taking their vacations. They're going to their daughter's softball game. They're celebrating their anniversaries because their work is done. And the leader who's hoarding all the work because they don't trust their people, they become resentful. Let me tell you, I love a good crisis. It's when I do my best work. I love working in an urgency mindset. And if a crisis doesn't exist, I'll cook one up. I'll elevate something to a crisis level because I do my best work under pressure. And that may sound crazy, but I'll bet you there's a lot of listeners who can relate to me. I like to work in an urgency mindset. When I do that, I tend to push that same mindset onto other people, and it fatigues them. So as you're learning to delegate, we teach the art in here of what are some questions to ask? Are you building capability in others? By delegating, have you explained the why behind the what? Have you built the skill? Have you set clear expectations? Have you explained what a quality result looks like? Have you slowed down and taken the time to train them, not just thrown it on them, and then they give back to you what they think is good work? It's not what you wanted, but you never took the time to explain, and here's what a completed project looks like. All these questions answered. Here's the font. Here's how I want it. Here's the deadline. Any questions you have along the way, come and ask me. Don't be afraid. Don't guess. Come and ask me. I'm happy to answer any questions, right? This takes us back to the first practice, right? Which is if you develop a leader's mindset, then you realize if my job is to get work done with and through other people, I want them to succeed. Their success is my success. I want to grow their skills. I want to grow their income. I want to grow their contribution. The more work they do better, the less work I have to do. Not no work, just the less it has to weigh on me. And a lot of leaders will think they don't have the time to train. It's your number one job. It's your number one job. Build capacity, capability in the people around you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because I saw it with my own eyes. So I saw this, so I totally agree with that. Well, let's speak about practice number 4, which is creating a culture of feedback. In your opinion, why it's important, why it's critical to create culture of feedback?
Well, this is my favorite one because next to coaching and mentoring, recruiting and retaining people, I think the second most important role of a leader is to provide people feedback on their blind spots. We all have them. And if as a leader, if you don't exercise the courage to have these conversations that require you to move outside your comfort zone, you don't deserve to be a leader. This is probably the second most important role of a leader, is to give feedback to people who report to you on their blind spots. It might be about their interpersonal skills. It might be about their personal hygiene. It might be about their inability to take responsibility for their actions or ever offer an apology. It might be that they have to always be the smartest person in the room or always have the last word, or they talk too much or they don't talk enough. A leader's job is to create a culture of feedback. Now, not everyone likes feedback the same way. In fact, not everybody likes feedback. So as a leader, you can treat people differently and still treat them fairly. Some people like feedback in private. Some like it in public. Some like it in a walk around the campus. Some want it in the privacy of their office. Some people, when they get feedback, they immediately cry and break down. You might need to close the curtains, offer them some tissues. Every situation is different. But as a leader, your job is to practice and role play having high courage conversations, because that's when people learn. It's people that have, been in 7 jobs. They've been fired for the same thing over and over and over again. Rarely, Ahmed, do they have a leader who was willing to sit them down and say, Ahmed, thank you for coming into my office today. I want to have a high courage conversation with you. And Ahmed, my intention is to have you build a great career inside this organization. And Ahmed, you're exhibiting some behaviors in staff meetings that I think might be unaware to you, that are diminishing other people's ability to also share their own creative ideas. I notice, Ahmed, that you tend to open every meeting with the items that you want to accomplish. You get the point, right? Whatever the situation is. When you're giving feedback to people, you declare your intent. You are very clear on circumstances and behaviors. You don't confuse facts with your emotions, your opinions, and your feelings. You base your feedback on facts. It's a huge gift you can give to your people. Now this practice is create a culture of feedback. So as a leader, your job isn't just to give feedback to others, but your job is also to solicit feedback from them about you. When is the last time you sat down with someone and asked them, what's it like to report to me? What's it like to work with me? What's it like to be married to me? Go home tonight to your spouse and ask him or her, your partner, what's it like to be married to me? And you have to make it safe for them to tell you their truth. Because most people, if you've not made it safe, will say, oh, you're great to work with. Oh, you're the best boss I ever had. Oh, it's great. They don't tell you the truth. They don't tell you that you're an obnoxious know-it-all, or that you have to always be right about everything, or that you're a micromanager, unless you make it safe for them to say, well, you know what, Scott? As a matter of fact, our weekly staff meetings, you're always cracking jokes. You're always putting people down, and you think it's funny, but quite frankly, it wears on people. So now that you asked, some feedback is being in a meeting with you is actually really difficult. And I don't know that you've noticed that, but since you asked, that's what I'm telling you. And as the leader, don't refute it. Don't defend it. Don't deny it. Don't try to run away from it. Thank them for the feedback. Maybe ask some clarifying questions. Gosh, I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that. Why do you think I do that? What happens when I do that? Any advice you would give me? That creates culture like nothing else. Give and solicit feedback.
When I read the book, I saw that it's mutual feedback. When you give feedback and also seek for feedback. I will share with you one thing quickly, because me and my friends, my colleagues in the work in the previous company, we used to have one feedback session where we give feedback to each other without justifying, without asking why, without anything, just getting the feedback and say, thank you so much. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the effort. I appreciate that you care for my development, because end of the day, this is for my development. As you just mentioned, this is on my blind spot that I cannot see. So this is totally true.
It's much more difficult than us talking about it, because a lot of people will say, well, no one gives me feedback. Yeah, because you're the boss, because you haven't made it safe for them to give you feedback. So if you're not getting any feedback, or all the feedback is positive, then as a leader, you have not created a culture or the conditions where it's safe to tell you the truth about what it's like to work for you, because it's not as good as you think it is.
Yeah. And also what I noticed that you didn't mention the positive and the negative feedback terms.
Yeah. So in the book, you're right. We teach this concept of reinforcing feedback, do more of this, and redirecting feedback, do less of this and do more of that. So thank you, Ahmed. We teach the skill of providing reinforcing feedback and redirecting feedback. You should teach this webcast. Why do you have me on? This is awesome.
And also I have this blue shade. I don't know why. Every time it comes to my screen.
Oh, really? I can't see it. It's okay. You look good to me. Is this your home? Where are you taping?
See, I have today was, I'm not saying the worst day ever.
I'm sorry.
But I had a lot of challenges. So the light is off. So I went to.
Well, you look good to me. You look good to me.
So yeah, I managed to get on time. So this is.
That's a big accomplishment. That's great.
Yeah. So practice number 5: lead your team through change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all leaders should read this chapter, especially during this pandemic outbreak, because it really has the guidelines and to all the leaders on how they can execute their must-go objectives, even if during the change. So same question, why it's critical?
Well, I think that every leader has to build a better appreciation for how emotional change is for people. That not all of your team members come about embracing change at the same speed, at the same level as you do. That a lot of people deal with change differently, right? Depending upon how many times they may have moved as a child, whether their parents divorced or stayed together, or whether they moved different countries because they were in the military, right? That change is deeply ingrained in people. And for a lot of people, they thrive on change. And others, they hate it. And it's crippling. So as a leader, the big idea that we teach is to understand that everyone comes at change through different speeds and different levels. And as a leader, your job is to perhaps maybe treat everyone a little bit differently around the topic of understanding. So here is this new initiative. What questions do you have? How are you feeling about it? Are you worried about it? Are you concerned about it? Are you excited about it? It's going to be confusing. We're going to have to work together to move through it. And we teach a very rudimentary 4-step change process, right? Around the status quo and kind of the confusing process and how things are looking better and how there's kind of new and better results. It's a very rudimentary, very elementary on purpose change process to just better reinforce in leaders that change is a very emotional time for people, including yourself. And as a leader, you also may be letting your own opinions about the change cloud your ability to implement the change. So you may have to set aside your own opinions about it go do your job, and then sit separately with your leader to say, hey, I'm implementing this, but I still have some questions and I still have some concerns, because a lot of leaders, when change comes their way, they'll either try to wait it out, they'll say this too will pass, or let some other division implement it. If it's successful, then we'll adopt it. And they end up protecting their team from a lot of change. And what happens is when real change comes that sweeps through the entire company, their team members have been protected from so much change. They're not intellectually agile. They're not emotionally nimble. And now they're kind of struck because they haven't had a change because their teacher or their leader was protecting them. The intention was good, but the outcome was poor.
Yeah.
So as a leader, the big idea on this one is to understand, don't let your own emotions about the change inhibit your job to implement the change, and recognize that everybody on your team might come on board at a little bit different speed. Now, they all have to come on board because the train is leaving the station. They might be in the first car, the second car, or the third car, but there's no fourth car, right? So you got to get on the train, and it's your job to not try to push everybody at the same speed, especially if it's an emotional process where their life, their job, their compensation, their location is being disrupted. Listen, take your time, in the long run, it will pay off. Dr. Covey said something profound. He said, with people, slow is fast, and fast is slow.
Yeah.
If you want to build relationships with your people, which are your organization's most valuable asset, it's the relationships. Take your time, slow down, and don't try to put everybody on your timeline. You may have to uncomfortably move on to their timeline occasionally.
Yeah. Oh, well, the last practice from the 6 critical practices of leadership, manage your time and energy. So I can find in this book interesting story about robots. Would you like to share it with us?
Was this a story that Victoria shared about the lawnmowers?
Yes.
Yes. So I can't relate. And in Dubai, there's no grass. I've been there. It's a beautiful country, but there's not a lot of grass, right? But our co-author, Victoria, is actually from Sweden. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia, in the States right now, but lived most of her life. In fact, she lived in Dubai. She actually was the HR director, I think, for the Burj Khalifa, or one of the major hotels there. I have it wrong, but one of the big hotels there. And she mentions that at her country home in Sweden, they have large fields of grass, and they have a robot lawnmower that runs like day and night, just mowing the grass all day long. And it's not a concept that I can relate to, because in Utah, it's mainly the mountains and the desert, kind of like Dubai. Yeah. But it's a great story around not always spending your time doing everything you have to do, pick your priorities, manage your time and energy well.
But why it's critical? Because I see some of my friends, some leaders, they don't have too much time or energy to do, to exercise, to give time for the family.
Yeah.
Why it's critical that you need to manage your time?
I think it's critical for many reasons. First is, as the leader, you're the model. What you model gets repeated. If you are a gossiper, everyone gossips. If you're on time, they come on time. If you have a balanced life, your team is more likely to have a balanced life. If you're eating healthy, if you're taking your vacations, if you're reading, if you're exercising, if you're living a multi-dimensional life, your team is more likely to get permission to do the same. If all you're doing all day long is working 80 hours a week and taking no breaks, you're going to burn out. And therefore, that is the culture that you demonstrate to your team, and they're going to burn out. Because your team members will take a vacation. They'll just take it from their next company where they leave to. Yeah. Because people don't quit jobs. They quit bad bosses and corrupt cultures. So as a leader, it's important that you model what you want to see in your team members. And just as importantly, Ahmed, is that as a leader, you don't burn out yourself, especially in the pandemic, right? I mean, everybody is working harder than they were before the pandemic, right? I'm up at 5, I'm working till 10 o'clock at night, I haven't had a vacation day in 4 months. March, April, May, June, 4.5 months, I've not taken a vacation day because everybody is worried, right, about their job and making a contribution. And you're on overdrive to make sure that if there's any cuts, that your job doesn't get cut because you're seen. It's the worst time ever for life balance right now. But as a leader, you don't want your people to burn out because then they're going to quit. You don't want your people to neglect their families because they're going to have stress and divorces. They're going to become more stressed and less productive. As a leader, you want your people to have balanced life, time off work, take care of their health, enjoy their family, learn new things, develop their skills. Because if they don't do it, they're never going to bring their passion, their energy, their joy, their creativity, their excitement to the job. They're going to be burnt out. They're going to be negative. They're going to be cynical. They're going to be obsessed with what's going on at their house or their finances. Yeah. You got to model your own time and energy. I heard a story once of a client that Franklin Covey did some consulting in. And on the lobby of the building, when you walked into the lobby, in giant print, it said, "Welcome, work hard, go home." Welcome, work hard, go home. As a leader, you have to make sure that everybody is clear on what is their what are the priorities. You've crafted SMART goals. You've trained them. You've coached them. And that you also encourage them to have a life outside of work.
Yeah. So, as we don't have very much time, so let's move to talk to your other book, which is Management Myths to Leadership Success, 30 Challenges to Become the Leader You Would Follow. First question comes to my mind. Is there a difference between manager and leader?
Yeah. It's a great question. For the purposes of our books, we choose to use the terms kind of the same. You know, Dr. Covey would say you manage things, you manage processes, and you lead people. Dr. Covey said managers work in the system, leaders work on the system. So there are some differences. But I think generally speaking, a lot of managers can become better leaders. And a lot of leaders can become better managers. And here's what I mean. When I was first promoted to become a general manager at Franklin Covey, I was in the Chicago, Illinois office managing a large team. I was a good manager. I was not a leader. But the leader that they replaced me with, he was intellectually smarter than me. He was great at systems and strategy. He was great at building solutions. But quite frankly, he wasn't managing the P&L. He wasn't managing the revenue pipeline. He wasn't managing delivering on the profit. So they brought me in, who was a better manager of behaviors, of pipeline, of revenue, and I grew to become a leader. But I think he could have been a better manager, and I needed to be a better leader. So I don't think you're one or the other. I don't think you manage people, but sometimes you manage their outcomes. Sometimes you have to manage their behaviors until they understand what's needed of them. And the terms are interchangeable. Perhaps there's a philosophical disagreement, but at the end of the day, I think it's a balance of managing and leading and know when to do which.
Yeah. For me, let me share that it's a huge difference between inspiring people to follow you as a leader, and nagging people to get the work done. So yeah, this is a huge difference.
I think it's an ebb and flow. There are some people who I have had to manage their outcomes. I've had to manage them more than I wanted to, and sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. But there were some people where leadership wasn't working, and I had to become a little more of a manager and to say, you must come to work tomorrow at 8 a.m. And the first thing you will do is complete this report, and then you will do this. And that worked, and some tighter management allowed me to pull back and lead them. Some people, I had to manage them out of the organization. Other questions?
So this book is divided to three main categories, if I can say. Lead yourself, lead others, get results. So if we can choose one challenge, which is the most important challenge in each category. For example, for lead yourself, if you can choose for us one challenge that we can speak about.
Now you're quizzing me on which of the 30 challenges are in which sections. I'm not sure I remember. I think the most important one in the first one is called listen first. I think it's number 3.
Number 3.
And as leaders, it's hard for us to listen because if you're like me, you've been trained your whole career to be a better speaker, a better communicator, right? We're always in influence mode, in persuasion mode, in selling mode. When listening is a leadership competency, that speaking can be quite selfish. Listening is quite selfless. And the more that you listen, the more empathy you show. The more you listen, you realize, I don't have all the ideas. The more you listen, the less you are the genius and more the genius maker of others. When you listen, you move off your own narrative, your own timeline, your own experience, and you turn around and you move on to the other person's. What's it like to be Ahmed reporting to Scott? Versus what is it like to be Scott leading Ahmed? It's a fundamental change. Yeah. So I think listen first is the most important one. I think the second zone, leading others, is this idea of having high courage conversations. We talked about it before. Yeah. Is, are you willing to love your people enough to move outside of your own comfort zone and sit them down and discuss something that may require you to say, Ahmed, I have something to discuss with you, and I may say it wrong, so I might ask for a do-over. Please forgive me, but my intent is to help you grow and be better here, right? That's not an easy conversation for everyone. Some leaders hate that, but when leaders avoid those conversations, they neglect them, they always become bigger problems. And then the high performers on your team watch you as the leader and your unwillingness to address the performance issues, and it destroys your credibility with the high performers.
Yeah, and
if I can, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
No, go ahead.
If I can choose also one challenge in the second category, which is coach continuously.
Yeah.
How good coaching session would look like?
Again, I think it goes back to providing feedback. Not everyone wants to be coached the same way. Ahmed, gone are the days where the leader did the once a year performance appraisal, where you came in, this is good, this is bad, hit them over the head, ranked them, and they got, that's just Cro-Magnon, right? No. As a leader, your job is to coach continuously. Not every 5 minutes, not standing over someone at the copy machine, but sitting back and understanding. So how does Mohammed want to be coached? How does Tina want to be coached? How does Victoria or Robert, how do they need to be coached? And then recognize that you're doing it continuously, not every minute, not every hour. Sometimes it might be through email, might be at lunch, might be in a walk around the campus, might be in a different way, right? You might be doing some redirecting, some reinforcing, but you're coaching constantly, not oppressively, but you're letting people know that I'm going to give you coaching in real time. And if it becomes too much, tell me. But I want you to know in the moment how you're doing, how you're building your skills, how you're building a great career here, how you're contributing to solving problems and growing our impact, how you're helping lead our mission. I think leaders have to understand what is the right frequency, what is the right calibration, and don't give everyone coaching the same way, because some people want it very differently than others, and you may have to manage your style, like parenting. My wife and I have 3 sons, 6, 8, and 10. We treat them all fairly, but we coach them, we talk to them differently because they have different personalities. Same way in leadership.
Yeah. Great. So I don't want to take too much time from your time, but the last category, which is get results. So if I can choose, I will pick the challenge number 22, which is creating vision. Why this is a challenge for the leader? Because we have all the strategic goals, we have the organization vision and mission, so we can act accordingly. why should the leader create vision?
I think as a leader, you have to learn to balance short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And when you set goals, when you set vision, when you communicate that vision, it has to be compelling. It has to be exciting. It has to be achievable. People have to understand how are they a part of that. They have to care. I once did some consulting with a major global company, and I was teaching the program in Beijing. And the leader was telling me that the number one goal was shareholder value. And she kept pounding me on shareholder value, stock price. And I said to her, I have to disagree with you. All those 10,000 people that just graduated from college with engineering degrees that just joined your firm, they have no stock. They don't have a share of stock. Now, maybe they'll earn some stock later on. I'll bet you have $10 million of stock. So for you, it's very clear. But if I was a 22-year-old college student coming out, joining a company, I don't care about the stock price. I don't care about making our investors more money. I want to know, how are we adding value to the world, right? How are we creating not just shareholder value, but customer value? Why are we in business? What's the reason? The reason we're in business is to create shareholder value. That's one of the reasons, not the only reason. And I don't think it should be the first reason. So I think when you're a leader, when you're creating vision, you're really creating meaning. You're creating purpose. You're clarifying contribution. Why are we here? And if we cease to exist, would anybody care? This company, I felt sad for the leader. She was much smarter than me. She was much wealthier than me. But she wasn't wiser than me. Because as long as their vision was to create shareholder value, I'm not working there. That's not my mission. My mission isn't to create some fund that I had nameless fund in some different country, a bunch more money. I understand we have to also do that. But when you're creating vision, make sure that you can take it out of your own head and put it into their heart. Out of your head into their heart. And that may be in the words you use. It may be in how many times you say it. It may be in examples that they understand that may not be how you would say it. It might be repeating it over and over again. It might be deputizing other people to be your ambassador for them to go share it. Because not every leader is great at communicating vision. Not every leader is passionate. Not every leader is a great speaker. That's okay. Not every leader can be everything to every person. So make sure that when you're creating vision, make sure that other people are as passionate about it as you are and can maybe even express it better than you can.
Yeah. So it's almost an hour. Time flies. So Scott, I would like to thank you so much for coming to the podcast today.
My pleasure.
As some of your valuable time. Looking forward to have you again when the newest book will be released in 2021.
Yep.
I can see that you are now you're working on it. So guys, I will leave you now all the comments in the comments part for Scott's podcast on leadership, where you can get all the latest updates from Scott. I highly recommend you to subscribe on this podcast on leadership. I will leave you the link on the comment. Scott, again, thank you so much. We appreciate your efforts and your time as well.
Ahmed, it's my pleasure. Everybody stay safe, wear a mask. I wish the people of Dubai well. I was coming there in October. I was supposed to come to Saudi and Dubai and Qatar in October. I'm not sure it's still happening, probably not, but I hope to come back to your beautiful country again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very big thank you for all of you who attended with us the meeting today and the podcast today, even on Zoom or Facebook, and wait for us in the next episode, inshallah, as we will host one of the top 30 leaders in the world in the customer service field next Thursday. Stay tuned, stay safe, and take care. Thank you so much.